It is his first rally in the nation's capital since January 6, 2021. From there came the violent attack on the Capitol. Supporters attempted to stop the certification of the 2020 election results, and they stormed the Capitol. I want to bring in Charles Marino, former U.S. Secret Service and former Department of Homeland Security senior advisor. He is also author of Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. I know that you are thinking about this the minute that the president-elect announced that he would be having a rally before the inauguration. I know that you immediately, your mind is thinking about the security concerns and the force of manpower that would be needed. What security risks come with this kind of a rally?
Well, what I can tell you is the inauguration is designated as a national special security event. As a matter of fact, the Department of Homeland Security also designated the certification of the election as an NSSE, as they're known for this time around, following the incidents of last January 6th in the previous presidential cycle. So with this NSSE designation comes a whole of government approach to security, which is my way of saying that the resources essentially become unlimited from a security standpoint, all the way down to including participation of the National Guard. The fact that the president-elect is having a rally the day before the inauguration means that all of those systems, all of the infrastructure, all of the personnel will be well in place, well established to also handle that rally, which will essentially fall under the umbrella of the inaugural security footprint.
Now, we have no reason to believe that we'll see a repeat of January 6, 2021. But how do you keep Mr. Trump and those attending safe?
Well, we just saw this in New Orleans, unfortunately. We know that investigation's ongoing and also ongoing in Las Vegas. So what we got to do is stick with the best practices when it comes to protecting large events. And the Secret Service uses a layered approach to security, with the outer perimeter being hardened to prevent against things like vehicle attacks. The intelligence has told us for decades that terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS have tried to inspire others to use vehicles as an attack mechanism to cause mass casualty events. Agencies need to pay attention to that intelligence, and obviously so. It will continue to be pushed. Now you also have the concern about copycats. We also have the concern that the attacker in New Orleans was unknown to federal authorities, that there may be a possibility there are other unknown threats out there. So the last line of defense needs to be well established in the security plans. It needs to be layered, and it needs to stop the real threats that are out there.
You know, in your book, Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country, you talk about people like the suspect who has been identified, who are right here, who are American-born citizens, who somehow become radicalized. How do you protect against that, particularly when, as you know this too, you know, it's one of those things where we're seeing a military veteran who was highly decorated. There's nothing that would have been a red flag.
Absolutely not. And that's why this is such a challenge for law enforcement and the FBI. You know, radicalization is different for every single individual that's impacted by it and ultimately becomes susceptible to it. That radicalization historically, Nick, has always been limited to, well, did they travel to a country of interest and they weren't flagged back when they came to the United States? Or did they get radicalized online? I think here now, based on what I wrote about in the book tied to the border crisis, is we have increased mechanisms for radicalization right here within the United States. So we have a trifecta of now how people can become radicalized. They can now become radicalized in their communities, at their local mosques, at other organizations, because we have allowed so many illegal migrants into the country from locations that are designated as special interest locations, where we know terrorist organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda are still up and running and still have a deep hatred for the United States and the West.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.